New York is expensive. So let's start with the elephant in the room. I'm sick. I didn't know I had a sinus infection until I got on the plane home, and then boy, did I know I had a sinus infection. So please forgive me if this is a little low effort and if my energy is a little less than usual today. As the title says, this is my stash haul from my trip to the garment district of New York City. I've never been to New York City ever in my life until this trip, and I didn't know what to expect. I was very anxious. I repeatedly almost canceled the trip, especially with the weather.
They're getting all the rocks off the plane.
We left Kansas City and it was like negative 12 degrees. And then we went to New York and there was a 60-degree day and Manhattan was magical. I can't wait to go back. But what you want is to see all the delicious, very expensive things that I got. I will say I had rough guidelines. I had a couple of things that I was going specifically to find fabric for, but it was more an exploratory mission. And my guidelines were that I had to absolutely love it, and it had to either be small or I had to have a specific project in mind for it in order for me to pick it up. Because, as you can see, I don't really have a lot of space for very much. Let us begin. There are a lot of fabric stores in the garment district of Manhattan. I will just tell you that. It's very overwhelming. I spent the first day just scoping things out and didn't buy anything. I found this at Fabric House. It was the very first thing I bought. It is undeniably polyester, but it's gorgeous. I did get 2 yards of it. It's $35 a yard. I did later go back to the store on my last fabric buying day, and I got a couple of these laminated PVC on, I believe this is a flannel backing for some cyberpunk stuff. One of my friends is doing a cyberpunk LARP, and I don't know what I'm making yet, but I figured these would be really good accent fabrics, and I absolutely love them, so they will find their way into multiple things. The next thing I bought was this black, again, probably polyester textured triangle fabric from H&M Fabrics, and it was $12.50 a yard, so I got 6 yards. It's fairly thick. It can probably be the base fabric for a couple of pieces. I wouldn't do a big walking skirt or anything out of this because it's a pretty heavy fabric, but it can also be a nice accent fabric. I did get completely overwhelmed in mood, which you have to enter by going through a revolving door. And pressing the elevator button for the 3rd floor. And then when you enter, you're on the floor with all like the special occasion fabrics and the brocades and the silks. And if you go downstairs, there's like furs and leathers and stuff. And upstairs is the wools. I saw this, and in the lighting there, it looked different. I'm just going to say that. It looked like it was a dark chocolate brown ground with baby blue pinstripes, which if you're a nerd like me, you would be super excited about because, you know, that's the 10th Doctor. But this is not a chocolate brown ground with a baby blue pinstripe. It's an indeterminate dark background color with an indeterminate pale pinstripe. In some light, it looks baby blue. In some light, it looks oatmeal. In some light, the ground looks brown. In some light, it looks black. In some light, it looks navy. It's a chameleon fabric. I'm not upset that I got it, but it's obviously not going to be a 10th Doctor historical gown. It'll be something else. It was $25 a yard, and I got 7 yards of it. And then I got this other gorgeous gold pinstripe on a black ground fabric. This was $30 a yard, and I got 6 yards of it. And I might call them, because it's not on the website, I might call them and see if they have any of it left and try and get it shipped to me, because this fabric is absolutely gorgeous and I love it, and I need more of it. I'm kicking myself that I only bought 6 yards of it, because I can't really do a full historical outfit with only 6 yards. But I will do some lovely, gorgeous things with it. Maybe I will use it as an accent fabric once I find a black coordinating wool suiting to go with it. Or maybe it'll go with something that's already in my stash. We'll see. I also got this gorgeous lace, which I mean, just say the laces are very expensive. This I got 1 yard of, and it was $50 a yard. I'm not used to paying these prices for fabric, but I figured this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I might as well, get myself some presents. And then I found this black brocade, which undoubtedly is polyester, but I really like both the front and the back of it, and I feel like it's going to be a really great accent fabric for, again, some cyberpunky kind of stuff. And another thing that I got from Mood that is not currently on the table, but I will get some B-roll of it when it's out of pre-wash, is I got this brownie maroon wool suiting for a project for NakaCon this year. I'm doing costumes for a couple of their mascots. But that was a very specific project that I needed to get fabric for because that deadline is looming. Next, Daytona trimmings. They've got this wax tracing paper for $5 a sheet, which is a good price. It'll last forever. I got 5 yards of this black rose trim, 3 yards of this absolutely beautiful black lace scalloped trim, and 3 patterns that I'm fairly sure I don't already have that had a sale. They were 3 for $10, which is only a little bit over what a Joann pattern sale on Simplicity and McCall would be, but we've all heard about what's happening with Joann, right? Right? Do you need me to talk about what's happening with Joann? Because it's pretty big. That's another video, though. At a place called Fabric 38, this was right up in the front, and I was on that cyberpunk kick and looking for fabrics that could, do cyberpunky things, and I found this faux leather on mesh geometric thing, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great, we'll get that. So I got 3 yards of it. It was $20 a yard. We did go to the Japanese bookstore near Bryant Park. It's called Kinokuniya. I got some souvenirs for friends and family, and I also got this little book nook kit, which is a little miniature diorama that you put on your bookshelves. It's adorable, and it's even got lights in it and lights up. I also got myself this cute little magnet. Also here we did buy a couple of umbrellas because it was supposed to rain the next day. We ended up walking through snow and the umbrellas were really super handy. They weren't super cheap, but I did pick up a couple of other things, but they were souvenirs for other people, and so I'm not really going to talk about them. As well as in paper goods, we went down to Chinatown to have some of the best dumplings I've ever had in my life, and while we were there, we walked to this little stationery shop called Essex Card Shop. Super cramped, but they had a bunch of cute little notebooks, and so I got 2 of these decomposition books and this astrological print notebook. And then, right next door, there's a yarn store called Downtown Yarns. Did you know there's no tax on yarn in New York? I don't think there's tax on fabric either. I found this beautiful teal and black juniper moon cotton and wool for $23 a ball, and it was very cold that day. So I was like, I need something to knit myself a scarf. So I picked up these 3 balls of yarn to knit or weave myself a scarf of some kind because I was very, very cold. I don't think any trip to the garment district would be complete without a stop at High Feathers and Trim, where I did buy some feathers and some feather trim, in fact, and a bunch of really sparkly baubles. I do plan for all of these to become feather clips for hats that I currently have and hats that I'm going to try and make. Speaking of making hats, I did find on Google this little place called Manhatco, and decided I was going to go stop in there. It is one of those places where you have to go inside and go into the elevator and go up, and it's not really a storefront. The guy was so sweet, so nice. I told him that I'm not a milliner, I'm just, a hobbyist, and I was going to be doing my first felt hat blocking thing, and I needed some blocking string and a capeline, and he walked me through the stock that he had. I ended up getting this nice sturdy, I believe this is a fur felt capeline, and he threw in a couple of yards of Petersham ribbon for me. He was so sweet, so kind. He doesn't usually have people go into the shop. He's mostly an order by phone operation, I believe, but yeah, if you have any needs for hat stuff, Manhatco, give them a call because he's an absolute sweetheart. M&J Trimmings, as we all know, is going out of business. When I walked in there, they still looked completely fully stocked. They did have a bunch of these clearance cards that were buy a $10 card, get a $10 card half off. So I ended up getting 14 of these cards. And then there was one that was $15 that I really loved, so I picked that up. At B&Q Trimmings, I found these clearance trims that were 2 for $20. So I picked 2 of those up, and I found 3 buttons because I want to replace the buttons on the winter coat that I made. The vintage moon buttons that I got were really pretty, but they just read very small on the coat. So I'm probably going to do that whenever I have just a little bit more energy. We were walking and there was an ambulance that was coming by, and I was already like overstimulated and it was just so loud. So I was like, we're just going to duck into this fabric store until the ambulance has passed. So I went in and there were a couple of things that I ended up buying. Right at the beginning of the store was this like mesh with these little black rhinestones on it. I figured that can be a cool little like insert maybe for the Say It With Me cyberpunk project. And then I also found this black lace with a little sprinkling of gold in it that can be an accent fabric for perhaps an Edwardian blouse. All in all, the amount that I spent on, not counting the bookshop stuff and yarn, just the rest of it, was $1,191.46, which is about the same amount that I spent on fabric when I went up to Minneapolis this past year. I do feel that I got a lot more yardage of fabric from Minneapolis, but the things that I got from New York, I don't think are things that I could have found in Minneapolis. I mean, they're more expensive, but they have an entirely different vibe to them. And I'm not upset. Did it require aggressive savings? Yes. Am I going to have to aggressively save in order to be able to afford to go to Minneapolis again this year? Yes. Maybe I won't go to Minneapolis this year. It's in the plans, but I also just got a notification that I got a scholarship to costume college. So I may go to costume college this year instead of Minneapolis. I don't know what we're going to be able to swing. But anyway, if you count all of the souvenirs and the yarn that I purchased, I spent $1,429.66 on stuff in New York, not counting the $30 suitcase that I had to buy to make sure that we were not overweight on the checked luggage because we only brought 1 checked luggage. Hot tip, bring as many empty checked on luggage bags as you can for your return trip home because it was really tight packing all of this along with our clothes and everything else that we had brought with us. I want to talk for a brief moment about the place that I stepped into twice and I didn't buy anything. Beckenstein's Fashion Fabrics, Fabric Czar USA. This is gorgeous. And this is $150 a yard. And this is gorgeous. This is $175 a yard. And this one is cashmere. Do you want to guess how much it is a yard? Just drop down and put your guess as to how much this very lovely blue and black cashmere is per yard. Are you done? Pause it and do your comment. Because now I'm going to tell you that this is $350 a yard. And I did not get any of these, but I really like them. So I got swatches to bring home and think about and dream about. Maybe someday. Maybe someday. When I win the lottery. I know that I'm incredibly lucky to have been able to afford to go to New York, much less buy anything in New York. And I really can't encapsulate in words how special the city is. Tom Wolfe once wrote, "One belongs to New York instantly. One belongs to it as much in 5 minutes as in 5 years." And oh my gosh, is it true? Like, walking down the streets of Manhattan, I felt like I belonged. Like, I could live there. Like, it's super expensive, and I probably couldn't live there because it's super duper expensive. Oh my gosh, the cost of food alone. But There's an essence to the city, and seeing all of the other creative people who were shopping for fabrics at the fabric stores and talking with the owner of Fabric House, you know, there's a magic there. And I am terribly, terribly privileged to have experienced that magic. I'm extremely grateful. And I think every time that I even look at these materials, much less get to use them on projects, I'm hoping I'll remember that magic. It was a good time. Even if I did pick up a sinus infection because our hotel was super duper dry. If you've been to New York, tell me about your experience. Have you been to the Garment District? What's your favorite fabric store in the Garment District? What's your favorite floor of Mood? Did you get lost trying to find Mood? Has any of this been helpful to you? Did I buy too much black and I should have, gotten some other color? Please let me know. Do you have any cyberpunk inspiration you can pass on to me so that I can figure out what I'm going to do for my hacker character? Thank you for being here, and thank you for your grace in dealing with me not feeling well. I appreciate you and every second of your attention that you give me. I hope you're taking care of my friend and staying hydrated and getting enough rest. And I promise you, I am doing my very best to take care of your friend. It's just rough going right now. Let me know if you want me to talk about what's going on with Joanne. I'll see you next week. And I got some things for some friends. What are these things called? The things that you buy when you're on vacation to give out to people? Souvenirs.